Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. First, I'd like to say thanks for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed, please hit subscribe. It'll help my channel to grow. As you can see, I don't have that many subscribers, but it is starting to pick up. And if you're watching my videos, I really appreciate it. And thanks for the comments. Speaking of which, a couple of days ago, in fact, I think it was 2 days ago, a new viewer sent me a request, said, hey, could you do a ranking of Jethro Tull? Now, I'm a big Jethro Tull fan. As you could see behind me, I have, as of today's date, I have 75 Jethro Tull albums and 9 Ian Anderson solo records. So I have all of their studio releases, all their officially released live albums. I have multiple versions, as you can see. I have 14 Tull box sets, archives, tour programs. I'm a pretty big Tull fan, as you could see. So I'm going to rank their albums from least favorite studio albums to my number one. There are 22 official Tull studio albums, so that's what I'm going to focus on. I don't want this video to be too big and too cumbersome. Hear this. I really love Jethro Tull. So I like all of their albums. I really do. Even their number 22 album, I really like. So I know some of you are going to say, oh my God, how did he put this album so low? Or how did he put this album so high? It's all personal opinion, but please know that I really enjoy every Tull album. And I think that's what makes Jethro Tull so special. I have a rant video in there. How they're not in the Hall of Fame just drives me up the wall. And part of the problem, I think, with Tull, the fact that they have 30 plus members, you know, the Hall of Fame probably holds that against them. But I think the biggest thing is that you really can't put Jethro Tull in a box. You want to listen to hard, progressive music that's difficult to play. Well, you got things like Thick as a Brick. You got Passion Play. You want to listen to pastoral, beautiful, melodic, yet progressive music. Well, they got that covered for sure with Songs from the Wood and Heavy Horses, for instance. Bluesy type of stuff, well, of course, you got their debut, This Was. You got things like Catfish Rising. Electronic music, you got Under Wraps. You got Broadsword to a certain extent. They're all over the place. And that's what makes them partially so special, and I think makes Ian Anderson a genius. You never get bored. You could listen to Tull every day. Depending on your mood, put this type of album on. So I like all of Tull, some more than others, but there's nothing I don't like. So this is just my personal selection. How do I rank them? Really, it's pretty simple. I'm basing it on the albums I listened to the most, were most influential to me, and at the end of the day, if I feel like listening to Tull, what album am I more apt to put on? So I think it's a fair judgment. So let's start at number 22. My least favorite Tull album, and that one's pretty easy to choose. That's going to be their Christmas album, and it's not that I don't think it's a really good record. If you enjoy Christmas albums, this is a really good one. You know, he kind of goes back in Anderson and covers Ring Out, Souls to Spells, which was originally on, you know, Songs from the Wood and Weathercock. But some new stuff on here, nice version of Greensleeves. For the Christmas season, really good listen. So that would be number 22. And number 21 would be this one. And it's not that I don't like this album. Rock Island. You know, Rock Island originally came out, what year did this came out? In 89. It was the one they did after Crest of a Knave, which of course won the Grammy. It's a fine record, you know. The single was Kissing Willie. It's kind of a fun kind of a song. It doesn't offend me as much as offend others. The video was kind of fun. Another Christmas song's okay. It's got some good tracks on it. I like the ending track a lot. You know, Strange Avenues, which is still got like that Martin Barr doing his best Mark Knopfler impersonation, I think. It's got that Dire Straits sound. It's a fine record. It's just not an album that I go to very often. And when I play it, I'm like, yeah, it's good. It's good. It's solid. A little heavier, I think, than Crest of a Knave. But just not something I listen to all that much. So it's probably the one that I go to the least as far as their regular albums. 21, Rock Island. At number 20 would be this album that came out in 1991, and that's Catfish Rising. And again, it's a fine record. In fact, in its time, it was actually a little bit of a return to form in a sense, because it came out after Rock Island, and it had a more bluesy influence, and it's got a lot of really good songs on there. You know, This Is Not Love was fine, and Roll Your On's kind of a cool little track. Rocks on the Road was a big track. Still Loving You Tonight's excellent. It's a good record. Again, just not one that I go to very often. But if I play it, I'm like, yeah, this is real solid. Number 20, Catfish Rising. This is a cool little thing that you might be interested in. Rocks on the Road. A nice CD single, which has a great demo version of Jacqueline. And Tull's always got these amazingly great tracks that never make an album. Night in the Wilderness is a killer track, too. So that's kind of a little interesting thing right there. At number 19 for me is probably the one that typically makes the worst album list, and I totally get it, and that's Under Wraps, and there's the hype sticker from the original vinyl. And this album is controversial and typically at the bottom of everybody's pile because, as you know, it's electronic and there's no acoustic real drums. And it suffers dreadfully for that, and it does. When I play this album, I'm like, oh my God, it desperately needs a live drummer. And in fact, there's a YouTube video of some guy I saw who's a great drummer. I don't know who he is. And he plays this whole album. So he's playing the album, and he's playing the drums to it, and he's playing it live, and it sounds amazing. There's a rumor that, maybe Steven Wilson will redo this album, and maybe that would be my choice, because I don't think there's a lot of outtakes left from this album, apparently. Remaster this album and do a second disc with a live drummer from Tull playing it, and I think it's going to turn this album up, completely change it, because there's a lot of really, really good songs on this album. They're just buried in this electronic, horribly dated 80s sound. But, Lap of Luxury is a decent single, and Under Wraps 2 is the acoustic track, which is really nice. Later that same evening, I know Martin Barr's a fan of this album, but also wishes they would have some live drums. And so that's why this album is not as low. It's not at the bottom for me, because it's at 19, because it's got some really good stuff on it. It just needs to be redone, and maybe they'll do that. Let's continue at number 18. Came out in 1999. It was actually their last studio album up until the Zelogene, and that's jtull.com. This album actually gets a lot of kind of bad reviews. I don't know why. I think it's actually a really decent record. It came out after Roots of Branches. It's not nearly as good as that, but it's a fine record. jtull.com I have at number 18. I love the title track. .com is a tremendous track. There's a lot of really good songs on this album, kind of buried in there. Dog Years is really good. A Gift of Roses is a really good track. But .com, the title track, is a personal favorite. So that's like, I have like Tull songs that are above and beyond their albums that are favorites. .com I love that track. So that's it. At number 18, jtull.com. Now, number 17 is going to piss a lot of people off. But it's not because I don't love the album. I do. I really do. I appreciate this album. And I love when I'm in the mood to listen to it. But I have to be in the mood to listen to it. And, so I don't play it a huge amount. And that's, at number 17 for me, is the classic A Passion Play. There are Tull fans that put it as their number one album. And I get it. But this is a tough listen. And you got to be in the mood for it. So here's the big box set, and I could do a video I have all of the box sets except for Thick as a Brick. You can see them behind me. This is the Passion Play box set with a full dose of the Chateau Disaster sessions, which I love. In fact, I love them maybe even more than the Passion Play album at this point. This is the vinyl release. Ian Anderson, they do such a great job on their artwork. And here it's got a libretto, as if you're in the theater, and the lyrics, and who's starring in it. It's just a really cool package, A Passion Play. So I really, really like this album. But it's 17 because It's a really difficult listen. It's the most difficult listen in the Tull catalog. If you don't love Jethro Tull or you don't know Jethro Tull, stay the hell away from this album. You will not probably enjoy it because it's a really tough listen. Another thing different about it, which is a little off, is that Ian Anderson got into a mode where he wanted to play a lot of saxophone instead of flute, and he does saxophone all over this album, which is a little bit different, for Jethro Tull. One of the things I love on this album is the interlude. In the middle of this album, they do a thing called The Story of the Hare Who Lost His Spectacles. Check out the video. That's where it's really fun. You could YouTube it, and, it's in the box on the DVD. It's so much fun. Just sit in a chair, especially, I'm not a stoner, but if you're a stoner, get stoned, sit in a chair and watch this The Hare Who Lost His Spectacles. It goes in the middle of the Passion Play, just so Jethro Tull, British humor-like. And it's just really off-the-wall video kind of story song that I love. But a Passion Play for me at number 17. And I know, it's really low on the list. It's kind of like, to me, how would I equate it? It's kind of like Yes's Tales from Topographic Ocean. An album that I really, really like. It's one of my all-time favorite double albums. But you got to be in the mood for it. And it's this album, for instance, when I listen to this album, I read the lyrics. And I'm not a person who's a big lyric guy. I never sit there and listen to music and read the lyrics. But in this album, you do, because it's a story. It's thematic. And it's really, really interesting. But it's a tough listen. You got to focus and be into it. Enough with a Passion Play. At number 16, let's keep going. That's going to be the album Benefit. Now, this is a classic album. It was their third record, came out back in 1970. Here it is on CD. To me, it's kind of a darker, moodier kind of album. It's got some great riffs on it, and I really like it. In fact, I really fell in love with it when I got the box set, the 50th anniversary box set, which I got like a year ago. And I must have played this album I played it in every variation on this box. So I must have heard it another 6-7 times. And it's a really, really strong record. But it's just like, for some reason, like the songs, like I look at the song titles even now, and I have to really concentrate and say, what song is that again? Except for the big classics like To Cry You a Song, which is this amazingly great riffy track. With You to Help Me is a classic. All the songs on it are really good. It's just, I don't know. It's just, I got to be in the mood for it, I guess. And it's just with the song titles, like, what song is that again? They don't stick out as much as the other albums. But it's a really strong album. It's a classic. And that's at number 16 for me, Benefit. At number 15 is going to be their newest release, and that's The Zealot Gene. I did a whole extended video just reviewing this album, so please check it out if you're a Tull fan. This is the deluxe edition. I really like this album. I love this version. If you're a Tull fan, this is the one I would tell you to get, because it's got like an acoustic demo disc where you hear Ian Anderson it sounds like he's in your living room, playing the songs just on acoustic guitar, which he's going to send to the members in the band to learn the tracks and come up with their parts. And it's a really cool part. And there's also a Blu-ray with a surround sound mix, which is great for me. I really like this album. Check out my video. The biggest problem I have with this album, I understand why he called it Jethro Tull. I don't want to get into the whole Martin Barr thing, but really the guitar playing on this album is terrific. You don't really miss Martin Barr, to be honest, although, of course, I would like him to be in there. Where it really suffers is the drumming. I talk about that in the video. The drumming on this album is very basic to me, and Jethro Tull's drumming is amazing. Their list of drummers, Dawn Perry and Barrymore Barlow and Clyde Bunker, and they're incredible drummers. And even though Ian Anderson writes the songs and arranges them, and he's, like a dictator, and I get that. That's great bands have to have a leader. They really, put it through their prism of their musicianship. And on this album, to me, the drumming is so basic. And it's fine. It's just that it doesn't have that Tull sound. It sounds to me like an Ian Anderson solo record because of the drumming. But there's a ton of great songs on this album. In fact, every song is good. And I love the sequencing. It's a really strong record. So there you go. At number 15, the most recent Tull album, the Zealot Gene. At number 14, from 1987, their Grammy winner, Crest of an Ave. I don't care that it won the Grammy. I think it's a terrific record. It's a little dated. The 80s also drum sound on here kind of hurts it. Back in the 80s it sounded better, but now it's got a dated sound. But there's a couple of songs on here that are just incredible. Said She Was a Dancer, I love. That's the Dire Straits type of track. You'd swear it's really good Dire Straits, and that's a high compliment for me. Budapest, which is in my top 5 greatest Jethro Tull songs of all time, and one of my all-time favorite songs by anybody. It's an epic, absolutely epic progressive track that Ian Anderson, when he first started out, he had to develop as a songwriter and musician to be able to pull off Budapest, and they do it magnificently. Budapest deserves the Grammy alone. So no offense to Metallica, Budapest is a marvel. And there's a lot of other really good tracks on this. Jumpstart's fun, Farm on the Freeway. It's a good record for sure. So no embarrassment that it won the Grammy back in 87. Crest of an Ave at 14. At 13, their very first album. This was, let's get that for you. Bear with me. So this was an album that, an initial listen, not that impressive because it's unique in the Tull catalog because it was their first album, and Ian Anderson was smart enough to call it This Was. Mick Abrahams left the band after that, and this is them as a blues band, a British blues band, and they would never sound like this again. That's their first CD of it. Here's the deluxe box set, 50th anniversary, with a million different versions of it and BBC tracks. Their box sets, by the way, are just the greatest Jethro Tull, and you can see I have all of them except for Thick as a Brick. But, when I heard it again from this box and I listened to it over and over again, I was like, man, this is really good stuff. This is an Italian import vinyl with a completely different cover. So if you're a Tull fan, you may get a kick out of that. But there's just a lot of really good tracks. My Sunday Feeling, Someday the Sun Won't Shine, For You, Beggar's Farm, a song for Jeffrey's on here. It's a good record for sure. It's not earth-shattering. It's the most generic, let's say, Tull record because it doesn't have that later Jethro Tull uniqueness, but it's still a good record, and it's grown on me a lot. At 13, this was Jethro Tull. At number 12, their second album from 1969, their first UK number 1, and that is Stand Up. This is the deluxe box set, and it stands up. Isn't that cool? And yeah, this is a shocking album coming after This Was because it sounds so different. But yeah, A New Day Yesterday and Bourrée, and Nothing As Easy as Monstrous, and then Fat Man with, mandolin, We Used to Know, Reasons for Waiting. It's a really good early Tull album. And Tull, like I said, is so much fun to listen to because they're so different. This Was and Stand Up doesn't sound anything like the latter years. It's completely different because there's so many different members of the band and their styles change. And that's not a bad thing. So depending on your mood, sometimes I'm in the mood for that early Tull. Yeah, at number 12, I go up to Stand Up. Let's go to number 11, which sounds like a completely different band from 1980. And this is the album A. Now, this album, if you're a Tull fan, you would know that this was originally supposed to be an Ian Anderson solo record. But the record company wanted it released as a Tull record, and it doesn't sound anything like the other Tull albums, that's for sure. Here's a regular CD version. Here's the a la mode 40th anniversary box set with live concerts and things like that. And this is just a really, really cool record. Of course, I had Eddie Jobson in the band and different, Mark Craney is a drummer. But there's a lot of really good tracks on this. It holds up really well for an electronic 80s record, which it definitely is. Crossfire is great. Farlingdale Flyer is great. Black Sunday is unbelievable. They used to play that live. How they can do that, I don't know. Pardon Martin's Jig is a masterful musicianship on that track, and Further On is a great closing track. It's a really good record. So that is why, for me, it's at number 11. This is really cool, by the way. I'll show you some of my archives. This is an original trademark of quality bootleg from Tull called Hand in Glove, and that was a live concert, I think, from Tower Theater in Philadelphia on that A tour. Cool boot if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Let's keep going at number 10, an album that a lot of people think is a really weak record. I don't know. I keep going back to this album, so obviously I don't think it's as weak as other people think. And that is their album from '76, right? Yep. Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die. Here it is on CD. Here's the gigantic TV special box set, because they had like a TV special for this. This is the tour they played at sold out Chase Stadium. They were a really big band. To me, when you kind of look at the individual track names, you know, it kind of comes off as a weak kind of album in a sense, or not a major Tull record. But for some reason, I'm always going back and playing this thing. So obviously, I really like it. And part of it is because when this album came out, I was 13, and from the get-go, the original single was the title track, Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die. To this day, it's one of my favorite Tull tracks. It is a major go-to track. If you don't know who Jethro Tull is and never played them, I think that's a great track. It's really commercial sounding, but it's still got that Tull coolness and sophistication to it and orchestration. It's great. And a lot of it is, you know, the Checkered Flag's a beautiful track at the end, and From a Deadbeat to an Old Grease is a great track. It's just a cool record. I don't know. I understand why a lot of people think it's weak, but I just go back to it. So that's my number 10. At number 9, maybe a little bit surprising for some, but I thought this was great. This was their album they released in 1995, Roots to Branches. Some people felt it was a comeback after Rock Island and Catfish Rising, and I guess it was to a certain extent. This is a really different kind of a Tull album. It's a great mixture of tracks. It's a little bit extended play. It's a little bit on the long side, but it holds up really well. It's got like Middle Eastern flavor to it with the title track and Rare and Precious Chain. There's a couple of tracks on this album that are amongst my all-time favorites, and Beside Myself is one of them. It's probably a track that you have never heard if you don't have this album. Man, go check out the track Beside Myself. It's unbelievable. And I love the ballads on this album. It ends with 3 in a row. At Last Forever, Stuck in the August Rain, and Another Harry's Bar. They're phenomenal. So if you're a sucker for Tull ballads like I am, and acoustic type stuff, Beside Myself, this album's got 4 amazing ballad acoustic type tracks. It's great. Really underrated record in their catalog. So there you go. At number 9, Roots to Branches. At number 8, it's supposed to be the next deluxe box set that's going to come out, hopefully. And that is Broadsword the Beast. I love that artwork. And this is hopefully going to come out as a deluxe box. That's the word. This is a really good mixture. It's kind of like A, but a little bit better than A. You know, they're able to do the electronic stuff, but at the same time with acoustic instruments and some great tracks. This is a really, really strong record. I know it was really big. Ian Anderson loves to say it was a huge hit in Germany, and I guess it was. It's got one of my all-time favorite Tull songs on there, Pussy Willow. Go check out the song Pussy Willow if you've never heard it. It's absolutely beautiful and awesome, but there's a lot of really good tracks on this album. Flying Colors, the title track, you know, and this album is loaded with great lost tracks. So the bonus tracks on here are great. Jacqueline is one of my top 5-10 Tull songs of all time. How that didn't make the album, I don't know, but it's an amazing track. There it is. I think Coronach is another one, which is Coronach, Coronach. Go pick up that. It's on the box set over there. That's an incredible track. He keeps leaving out great tracks that are better than some of the tracks that make the album. So there you go, Broadsword the Beast. And that is at number 8. At number 7, an album that's really been going up, moving up for me. And that is Stormwatch. When Stormwatch came out, initially, it took me a long time to get into it. Here was the original release on CD, digitally remastered. Then when I got the deluxe box set, the 40th anniversary, and I just play these box sets to death, and you wind up hearing the album like 4, 5, 6 different times, different mixes, and it just hit me. And I'm like, this is a really great, powerful, dark Tull record. And I love it. And it's moved way up in the ranks. Now, there's an instrumental that ends this album at number 10, you see, called Elegy. Write that down and do a YouTube or Spotify. It is the most haunting, most beautiful instrumental you have ever heard in your life. It should be like in movies. It'll make you cry. That's how powerful that song is, and it shows you the depth of Jethro Tull and what they can do. Dung Ringle's another personal favorite, but All of the Home is great. There's not a bad song on it. It's just a dark, mysterious, not a happy-go-lucky record, which is a great cover art all the way around. It's an album that's grown for me a lot. So there you go. At number 7, Stormwatch. At number 6. Some people may have this higher, but 6 out of 22 is pretty high. And that's their classic from 1975, Minstrel in the Gallery. Here it is on CD. And there's the original track listing right there. And then here is the gigantic 40th anniversary box set with live concerts and things like that. Yeah, this is a classic for a reason. The title track is amazing. I'll never forget, the first Tull album I ever had besides Aqualung was one of the greatest hits albums. This one, Repeat, I think it was? Yeah, Repeat. That was the first Tull album greatest hits album I got. And Minstrel in the Gallery is on there, and it's short. It's like 4 minutes. So when I got the original Minstrel album, I was shocked because it's an extended track. It's like 9-10 minute track, give or take. Because it starts off, slow and builds up into that classic great riff was the single version. So that was shocking when I got this album initially. But it's just great. Black Satin Dancer. Requiem is amazing. Love that. I love One White Duck. And on this album, again, the bonus track, Summer Day Sands, is killer as well. I think I'm in a minority. I just never really warmed up to Baker Street Muse. But it's okay. It's like an extended track that you could see with a lot of sub-tracks. Progressive. It's good. But Minstrel in the Gallery, for me, is at number 6. At number 5, in fact, the album that they put out before that, 1974, and that is War Child. This was originally going to be like a film, and it didn't get made, but I really like this album a lot. I just think it's an relatively easy album to listen to. Of course, it's got the big hit in the time, Bungle in the Jungle. There's a lot of Jethro Tull fans that hate that song. I love Bungle in the Jungle. It's a go-to track to this day. Love Bungle in the Jungle. Yeah, it's commercial, but listen to it. It's still so Jethro Tull. I mean, nobody sounds like Tull. It's commercial, but it's not commercial. I mean, it's just off the wall as Tull could be. But I love that track. Skating Away in the Thin Air of the New Day is amazing. I love the way the album opens with the T and sound effects with War Child. Queen and Country is great. Two Fingers is great. And then look at the bonus tracks that he didn't put on this album. Paradise Steakhouse is killer. And Rainbow Blues is one of the greatest things Tull ever did. How it's not on this album, I don't understand it. But this is a really strong record, and this was the 40th anniversary theater edition of that album. So I still go back and listen to War Child a lot. It's a really strong album to me. And this is a pretty commercial as Tull can be. So, that one's a pretty relatively easier one to listen to. That's at number 5. Now, at number 4, a lot of people call it the mother of all, conceptual albums. I don't know. He did it really as a goof. to kind of, because a lot of critics thought Aqualung was a concept album. So he said, well, I'm going to really give you a concept album. That's the story. And here's the original first pressing vinyl of Thick as a Brick with the full newspaper. And, you know, it's a classic. The only thing I would say about Thick as a Brick is that if you're not a Jethro Tull fan, or you're not into, sorry about the microphone, or if you're not into progressive rock, this is a tough listen. It's a 45-minute song with, you know, one track with a lot of subparts. But obviously I'm a fan. Here is a CD version of it with live excerpt, a 12-minute excerpt from Madison Square Garden from 1978, which is phenomenal. And here's the Steven Wilson remaster of it, remaster of it on CD as well. It's the only of the box sets that Tull did that I don't have. Didn't get it at its time, and you can't really get it anymore. But Thick as a Brick is a great listen. Although in today's day and age, when I'm in the mood for it, I tend to listen to like the 12-minute excerpt, which is like what they always perform live, where they kind of take that best of the 45 minutes and shrink it into 12 minutes, and it works really, really well. And here's another bootleg. This is a cool vinyl bootleg. Also trademark of quality called Ticketron without the N. And this was recorded live on the Thick as a Brick tour. Little tidbit for you. So there you go, Thick as a Brick at number 4. At number 3 would be Heavy Horses. And Heavy Horses, of course, came out in 1978. It was the follow-up to Songs from the Wood. And as you could probably guess, my favorite Tull is that pastoral English countryside, yet heavily progressive stuff. And Heavy Horses is a masterpiece to me. There you go. No Lullaby. The title track, One Brown Mouse is phenomenal. Weathercock, there's the original version. But see that track right there, number 4? That's one of my favorite Jethro Tull songs. If you have never heard the song called Moths, write it down. When I'm done with this video, go check it out. It's one of the most beautiful, melodic songs you'll ever hear. It's catchy, but yet you see the genius of Jethro Tull because it could have been commercial, but it's not. But yet it is. Nobody else is like Jethro Tull. So there you go, Moths. My favorite track from a great album, my number 3 album of all time from Tull, Heavy Horses. At number 2, we're getting there. Number 2, their most famous record, their biggest album. The classic from 1971, Aqualung. You know, it's hard to argue. This is probably song for song, pound for pound, their best album. It's beautifully sequenced. You got the classic title track. Cross-Eyed Mary is amazing. I love the acoustic interludes that Ian Anderson does, like Cheap Day Return. You got Mother Goose. Wondering Aloud is amazing. It really is as close to a perfect album that Jethro Tull ever had. And that's Aqualung. And then, of course, here is the 40th anniversary mega box. The biggest problem with Aqualung was that it never sounded good on vinyl. Had like a muddy sound. It just wasn't recorded all that well. But over the years, there's been a lot of remixes and remasters, and they've made it better. This is a great version from the box set, and the album just sounds better than ever. I mean, look at the other track. You know, Hymn 43 is a classic. You talk about a great riff. That used to get played on FM radio, at least here in New York back in the day. Locomotive Breath, Wind Up is great. The whole thing is great. It's a perfect, as close to a perfect album that Tull's ever done. But it's not my favorite Tull album. At number 1 is from 77, Songs from the Wood. And it was the first Tull studio album I ever bought when it actually came out. I have special feelings for it. I have a video that you could search called Jethro Tull Starter Pack, where I talk about Songs from the Wood and some of the early best of albums that I got, how I got into Tull. And this is it. Songs from the Wood to me is a masterpiece. It's perfect. It shows really the genius. You know, listen to like the title track. I'm a drummer. I couldn't play that song in a lifetime. I just don't have the chops. I mean, it's acoustic, yet it's so complicated, yet it's catchy and melodic, but you got to be a master musician to play this stuff, and that's a good example of Tull. But beautiful acoustic stuff. Jack and the Green, and Cup of Wonder, and The Whistler, such a great single. Go check out The Whistler if you've never heard that. Ring Out Solstice Bells is catchy. Fires at Midnight is a beautiful way to end it. And this was the country set, the 40th anniversary. So there you go, my number one. So you got the top three right there. Just to highlight them, you got Songs from the Wood and Aqualung and Heavy Horses. Just amazing stuff. Those are the top three. Thick as a Brick, Warchild, Minstrel in the Gallery, Stormwatch, Broadsword and the Beast, Roots to Branches, Too Old to Rock and Roll, Stand Up, This Was, Crest of a Knave, Zealot Gene, Benefit, Passion Play, JTull.com, Under Wraps, Catfish Rising, Rock Island, and the Christmas album. But again, I like all of their albums. And if you wanted to get into Tull and you never did, these were the first two that I got. The MU, The Best of Jethro Tull, and Repeat, The Best of Jethro Tull Volume 2. These were the first two vinyl albums I ever had from them. Great selections, and interesting, they took like a little bit of Passion Play and edit, and they worked really well on these albums. One of the greatest box sets ever produced, 20 Years of Jethro Tull. This is how box sets should be done, and this was one of the original box sets when they weren't really in vogue. They were just starting. But this was great because it had the Chateau Disaster tracks on here a little bit, and then rare tracks that were hard to find, and radio programs, and then a disc of Essential Tull and acoustic type stuff. This is one of the greatest box sets of all time. If you run into this thing, you should grab it in a heartbeat. Then they did a single distillation of that, 20 Years of Jethro Tull. This is an awesome distillation of that box that we just talked about. There's so many compilations. Here's the original vinyl of Living in the Past. Like I said, Jethro Tull, the beautiful production values and packaging, even in the CD age, as you saw with the boxes, but on their vinyl. Lots and lots of compilations. One of my favorite, some of my favorites is the Best of Acoustic Jethro Tull, because I love that. This was a fun unplugged live record. This is a good one, a little light music. There's tons of compilations. This was the Best of Jethro Tull, which is a double, and 36 Greatest Hits. There's one that's got 50 tracks on it. But this is a special one. This was called Nightcap. And this is a compilation. The first disc was the Chateau Disaster tapes, which was the original version of a Passion Play, which he later scrapped and then redid from scratch. You listen to this and you're like, man, this is killer stuff. Why did he scrap it? Because it's great. And then the second disc is stuff that didn't make the albums, and they're as good as the stuff that's on the vinyl albums. Now he put a lot of those tracks on as bonus tracks. But to get them all here, it's a phenomenal listen. This side disc 2 from this album is one of my favorite Tull albums. This is a great find. If you've never heard of Nightcap, you should try to get that. There's a ton of Tull Live albums, but this is the best one. The most famous one, the first one, Jethro Tull Live Bursting Out, which was from the Heavy Horses tour. Great stuff. And what else you see back here? Here's the 25th anniversary box. Again, really cool cigar box, and this was a 4-disc set. Not as good as that other box. Again, it was a disc of remixed, remastered tracks. But disc 4 on here was live tracks taken from around the world, which was a really good disc. That was really cool. There's just so much stuff I have. There's the London Symphony Orchestra. I didn't even show all of them. Like I said, I have 75 Tull albums, and this is probably about 2/3 of them. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're still with me, go and you love Tull, check out, sorry if my opinion's a little bit different than yours. If you never heard Jethro Tull, take my advice. There's a lot more to Jethro Tull than just Aqualung. They're all over the place. And one last thing I would say is, Ian Anderson's solo career is really good, because of course he's the mastermind of Jethro Tull. He always writes the songs. But I only wish that he had released this under the Tull name, because this is a killer album. This would be way up in my list, and most people don't know Tab 2, which is Thick as a Brick Part 2, and people are like, oh, he did a sequel to Thick as a Brick. Yeah, and it's great. It's great. So a little shout out to this, Thick as a Brick 2, something you may want to check out. And behind me, I don't know if you can see, you know, Ian Anderson always goes all out with his packaging. And you see back here is a whole shitload of tour programs from all different Jethro Tull tours. One of the greatest frontmen of all time is Ian Anderson. I think he's a musical genius. He's a visionary. I hate using those words, but he really does apply. He's amazing. And that's it. So thanks for tuning in. Sorry this video is a little long, but what the hell, we covered a lot of ground. And if you like Jethro Tull, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit subscribe and please tell your friends. And have a great day.